Okay, here we go. My fourth victim. Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second day of COMIT conference. Before I hand you over to your chairs for the day, what I wanted to do just briefly is to run through a little bit of housekeeping with you. Who wasn't here yesterday? Okay, a few of you, so we do need to just redo the fire alarms and bits and bobs. So just so you know, the tea and coffees are outside there, straight across the hall. The toilets, etc., are outdoor, straight across, down the little corridor on the right. The fire exits, Vaz, remind me where the fire exits are in this building. So there's one there, and there are ones out in the main entrance. There are no fire alarms due for today, so we're all right. So if it is a fire alarm going off, it's the real thing, and we need to evacuate according to the plan. So, with fire alarms. Sponsors, just wanted to have a quick chat to you about certain things. Has everybody picked up one of these? Yeah, you've all got one of these. Has everybody used one of these? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I suggest you go there, you read the either the NFC on the back or the data matrix code, or type that bit in and it gives you all the agendas, the presentations, all the bits of bios about the speakers, the sponsors and everything. It's better than taking a scrappy bit of paper away in your pocket at the end of an event, because it gives you a lot of stuff, a lot of information. Really good, thanks to the City Insights guys. What I also wanted to do briefly is to introduce you to our four sponsors here. I sort of want people to go and talk to them a bit more, because there is a really good reason to talk to them. Not only because they've got some fantastic solutions and some really good ideas that we need to have in the construction industry, but also because there is competition. Okay, who's started filling in their questionnaires? Oh, so one or two of you, okay? So, nice, shiny thing. 360 3D camera, okay? If you've been seeing the live stream footage from yesterday, it's pretty damn good, the kind of things you can get out of it. This one here, wrapped up in lovely paper, could be yours if you answer these questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each of our sponsors 120 seconds, okay, so if anybody's a stopwatch, that'll be very handy, to answer three things that will give you a good introduction to them and for you to go and have a chat with them during the breaks, etc. during the day. So,
that's three things.
Three things. It was three things. It was, why should it come and speak to you? Okay. What are the questions and answers on your sheet?
What are the questions and answers?
And what can you do for me? Whether it's giving me a free USB stick or giving me the ability to connect to a site office, or whether it's ability to, I don't know.
So you want me to give the answers to the questions as well?
Give an answer, because then these guys have got one answer. They've got a client.
I'll give one answer. I'll give one of the answers.
Well, the answers, because then you've got a chance to people come up and get the two.
Okay.
So, 120 seconds.
120 seconds. Why come and talk to us? Remind me the three.
So, why come and talk to you? One of those questions and answers.
Questions. And what can I do for you?
What can you do for me?
Okay. Why come and talk to us? Very briefly, we're new to COMIT, so we probably haven't talked to many people in the room before. We work in the construction industry, specifically helping construction companies get construction sites connected quickly and scaled through the life of the project. One of the questions that we was, how do we help you ensure that the precious bandwidth of the construction site is used for the most appropriate purposes, as in business reasons, as opposed to social media? And the answer is knowledge and control. You can see in terms of traffic and give you the dials to be able to control who does what with the precious bandwidth is one of the features. There's two other questions. How quickly would it take us to spark up the site? And what SLA do we offer for a construction site connected by a smart hub? So can we talk to us about that? What can we do for you? Well, the same as yesterday, I believe, because we brought the smart hub with us, and the Wi-Fi in the building, I believe, had some issues, and we can actually replace it, and you can use the smart hub live today, as we did yesterday.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura from Viewpoint Construction Software. You may you probably know us as FULCRO previously. We're a market-leading software provider which helps people who work in the construction industry work collaboratively. Many of you will have already used our software. Maybe you license it as a business, or you may have a C2 license via a Tier 1 contractor, for example. We also have a mobile-based solution called FULCRO as well, which adds value to those who work already on projects. So, and one of the questions that we had was, how do I track who has done what in COMIT? And the answer to that is our COMIT database within Viewpoint projects offers a complete audit trail of who's entered what and where. So, which actually that thing flows through the software entirely anyway. It's very transparent and kind of nowhere to hide in terms of if someone said they'd read something, oh yeah, we did last week, we'll claim to have that kind of thing. So people love that. And the reason to come and speak to us, we haven't got any freebies unfortunately, but do come along. We're more than happy to show you the software, or you can take a business card. We can arrange it at the time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good morning. I'm Kenny Ingram from a company called IFS. I look after the construction, engineering, and infrastructure sector for IFS globally. So IFS, we basically are a specialist software provider in what we call project and asset lifecycle, and that's kind of the clue to the first question. So a project and asset lifecycle software provider. Why should you come and talk to us? Well, I think it's useful to come along and find out what we do. We're kind of known to some people in the industry and not known to everyone, and I think it's useful for you to come along and understand who we are, what we do, some of our customers, and see if there's obviously something we could do to help you. Simple as that. And we do have some freebies. We've got golf balls for anyone who plays golf. And we've got USBs, and we've got really high quality IFS.
Yay! Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So why you should come to see me? First of all, because I'm a nice guy, and because at Final Cut we want to change the way we build. So basically, we digitize the processes of the construction industry. Today, most of you do all paper-based. You're doing health and safety, weekly inspection, progress monitoring, snagging, all on paper. So our device is mobile focused, and we do that to help you guys save time and money on site. One of the answers to the question, on 10,000 projects already worldwide, and the third freebies. Yes, I do have a free case study we did on over 30,000 apartments. So it's an example of how we analyze rates already in the system of all our clients integrate, and we analyze this data to help them understand where the problems are and where they can focus on.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Okay. So just to encourage you to go and visit them during the day, get those questions, and the wonderful prize will be yours. Right. Okay, so handing over now to our chairman.
And I'm very pleased to come back and co-chair today. And thanks very much to the team for letting me do so.
So I'm Jennifer White. I'm a professor at Imperial College, and I've had a long connection with COMIT too. So we've hosted COMIT when I was in a previous role, and I've been coming for a number of years.
For those of you who weren't here yesterday, we thought we'd do a quick brief recap from yesterday and what we took away from it. Now, obviously, I work for a client organisation that's on a project that's 80% complete, and time is pressing, and we don't want to do any change right now. And that's sort of the perspective that I'm coming from with regards to COMIT. I'm wanting to learn about the way that new things are done and what have you, but a challenging environment with regards to change, innovation, disruption, and all that type of stuff right now with Crossroad. If I talk about the three things on the left there, what I really sort of reflected upon yesterday. One was from Alex Lubbock, who came in and did a really good presentation, and I took away from that the challenge we have with the skills gap in the UK. So part of me thinks it's a challenge, another part of it thinks of it as an opportunity. I've got 3 young children who are at home, far more digital than ever I was at age 7, 11 and 13. And there's got to be a way that we can harness their ability with also the experience we have in that industry. I was fascinated to see the photogrammetry presentation that we had on London Bridge. I go through London Bridge and have been going through London Bridge for the last 3 years, watching that construction go ahead. It's fascinating going to see it every day. It's almost like a human time lapse. It's fantastic going in there every day, every morning, seeing it change. It was really insightful to see the work that they're doing over there with regards to photogrammetry and how you can now take 3D images with your mobile phone. And it takes 8 to 10 minutes to train someone how to do a 3D image of some construction works. It's fascinating to see, bearing in mind that we've got people in Crossrail, and I call them Ghostbusters because they go out with a massive great big backpack and a laser scanner, and they look really sort of what's weighed down, and it takes them an awful lot of time. Then they come home and they come back to the office and plug it into this massive great big disk drive because it takes up so much space. It's not very collaborative. To see that kind of stuff is really interesting. And then I thought we had a wonderful presentation yesterday from Dr. Nicola Millard with regards to the future of work. And I took away from that this whole concept that it's okay that one size doesn't fit all. But then a client organisation like Crossrail, which has got 14,000 people working across the project, all they really want to know is what do people do the same? How do we get better? They see standardisation as way there. We get better visibility of what's going on across the programme. It's so big, but actually, we're fooling ourselves to think that we can standardise the workforce because you're not going to get the best out of them. With a very diverse workforce, both diverse in gender, personality types, experience. What you want to do is you want them to be able to flourish and nurture that diversity because it will help with innovation and driving things forward. So I really reflected upon that whole one size doesn't fit all thing and thought actually maybe I'll have to take my head out of the sort of corporate standard world and try to give people more choices. So that's the kind of stuff I took away from this. I thought it was really useful. I hope some of you did too. And for those of you who weren't here, you missed out on some really good stuff, but we've got plenty for you today.
So I was also really excited about the range of presentations we had yesterday, particularly around some of the work on future technology. So I think we were really challenged by some of the presenters that were talking about AI, about robotics, about some of the new visual practices, including photogrammetry, and I was really struck by this kind of convergence of the cyber world and the physical world. And so my colleague from Imperial talked a bit about that around security and so on. And so I think there was a rich set of conversations yesterday, and we're both really excited to continue that dialogue today.
We thought we'd briefly talk about what excites us about today, or what we'd like to get from today. Now, everybody's going to want to come here with their own perspective of what they want to try and get out of it today. I thought I'd just share with you what my thoughts for the day are, and also Jennifer's thoughts for the day.
Yeah, so I guess from a research perspective, I'm interested in what's over the horizon. You know, what are we going to be doing in the sort of mid to long term? You know, where is the industry going? How is technology transforming our sector?
And similarly, for somebody who's got to go back to the office tomorrow to a project that's 80% complete, that just wants to get over the line, wants to make sure they hit all their schedules, hit their budgets, and wants to make sure that everything is assured and the quality of the work is fine fit for purpose now. Crossrail will be going into testing in November 2017. Practical completion date is August 5th, 2018. That's not very far away now. So we're very much on sort of like eyeballs out, let's try and get this finished on time, whilst not losing track of the values that we've held dear to us during the course of the project, such as safety, collaboration, integration, and the likes. So what I'm looking for today is what can I do over the next 12 months as a result of coming to this today. So I hope you probably all had a look through the agenda. It would be really good if you did, and picked out things that are of interest to you.
Yeah, I mean, just to complete the slide, I think one of the great values of COMIT is this sort of sharing of experience of implementing and embedding technology. We talk about technology, but we also talk about how it's embedded in practice and how that changes culture and process. And I'm really excited to continue that conversation.
So I think without further ado,
we'll move on to
our first presenter.
So I'm really pleased to introduce Tim Broyd, and I guess Tim needs little introduction to many of us in the room. He's had a distinguished career in industry, Atkins, with Syria, with FULCRO, and moved into academia, so has taken up a chair of professorship at UCL, leading the Institute for Digital Innovation in the Built Environment, and is also the incoming president of the ICE.
Thank you. Who is this guy? Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that, Jenny. You mentioned that I'd been through FULCRO, now CH2M on my journey. It's actually Saturday will mark 4 years since I left CH2M, left this building. It's nice to be back. I've been back 2 or 3 times since. But it's good. Yeah, that's me on both sides. I do become president, getting a bit, nervous at the thought now. It's just 4 weeks and a couple of days or so. Let's see how that goes. Before I start anything, I think I thought you were going to might have mentioned this, but we're now talking about increasingly small widgets, increasingly fast communications. We're in now what was one of 2 headquarters buildings for J. Lyons. Those who have grey hairs like me might remember J. Lyons corner shops, tea shops around London. And certainly in the 30s, 40s, 50s, this whole area was at the centre of everything. So where the new flats are, just across the road, they were the main bakeries, and there were 6 or 7 different buildings. There's a building just over the road, which was a sort of research lab, etc. Now, whoever it was running Lyons, I guess a guy called Lyons, back immediately post-war, had a fascination with technology and doing new things, and it was actually in the basement of this building and the adjoining building that the world's first commercial computer was assembled. It probably filled both basements. It was called Leo 1, Lyons Electronic Office 1. I think it was called Leo 1 when Leo 2 was built. They had to find a name for the first one. And what did it do? Well, yes, it did the payroll. Great. And, from computers from then on for about 30 years were the domain of finance directors. But it also ran the first sort of salesman routing type program at a time when there was little or no refrigeration. And Lyons, of course, were in fast-moving, literally fast-decaying comestibles, cream cakes and a lot, and they had to work out what the quickest route was around all of the shops in and around London. So that's a bit of history. I'm eating into my time. Let's start with more history. I was just on the length of the assets, the ages of the assets that we now have to look after. I was up at the Liverpool to Manchester Railway a couple of weeks ago, unveiling, one of 2 or 3 people unveiling a plaque. This is the world's first really operating railway. Some people might say Stockton-Darlington, but for the first few years, half of the Stockton-Darlington line was pulled by horses because steam engines couldn't make gradients. So we have a railway here, opened getting on 200 years ago, 35 miles, the world's first tunnel underneath a populated area, a 2-mile cutting in deep cutting in hard rock, 64 stone and masonry bridges, all of which are still there, still working, as is the Sankey Viaduct shown there, and nearly 5 miles of crossing a bog. And they crossed the bog by throwing in hurdles of willow until the willow stopped sinking, and then put a railway across it. Now, and it was 4 foot 8.5 inch grade, etc., etc. That is now part of the Network Rail operating system. The way they use to reinforce the earth, the soil, the bog or whatever, hasn't been changed since. It's got new rail track, it's obviously got signalling, electrification. Majority of the stations are as they were, all of the bridges. This is the fixed infrastructure that we are maintaining now. Okay? So, literally, we've got Crossrail opening hopefully next year. Maybe a year after. You can hope. And we've got this that's nearly 200 years old and everything in between. So, when I was at uni, things were green. Well, instruments were green, and they were optical. We used bumpy levels, we used satellites. When I went on my first year surveying camp, we did a kilometre or so surveying of the Funfair, whatever, Welcome Fanfare Light Railway. It's still operating. That's from their. That's a bit tidied up here. The one that where is he? Yeah.
Yes.
You said you'd defuzzy it. Well, you can still go there. We couldn't have done it that much harm. We went to Umbridge, world's first cast iron arch bridge, constructed 1771, but using new material, but using old techniques. So if you look at that closely, you'll find it's held together with large iron wedges, exactly the same as if it had been built of wood, but new technique. And, you know, we use slide rules. Cycles. I've still got that. That's in my loft somewhere. That's my wife's phoned it out. It was then, and it remains, a good calculator. It never runs out of charge. It's never rendered obsolete by a system upgrade. But you do need to have a sense of number. You do need to know whether the answer is going to be 0.22, 20, 200, whatever, before you start. You need that sort of judgment to allow it to work. Now, you know, I ought to check out what that would be worth today. It's probably a sort of a terms accommodation or something stupid like that. But it helped. It started. It could add. It could subtract. It could multiply. It could divide. And it could do pressure reverse. People worked in those drawing offices. Right. One engineer drove two draftsmen, as they were. Actually, it's not as daft as it might sound, because the draftsmen knew that, and the engineers knew, that they could make about 5 or 6 changes on any part of a drawing. And this was film, pen and ink, and of course razor blades. The razor blades to allow you to scratch out what had been there. You could make 5 or 6 before you had to start again from scratch. And engineers knew that and were a bit savvy and worked to that. So, and then through the 80s we got into mainframes. Everything was, of course, a black and white world. Colour came later. It actually came into the late 80s and 90s, where we started to get workstations through, and where the cost of the technology was substantially more than the cost of the person in front of the technology. And I was at Atkins at the time, and Atkins and other design companies used to sweat their assets by getting CAD technicians or whatever to work shifts, because the technology was more important than or had to be used more than the people. And then around about, well, by the mid to late 90s, as you can see, I was at Atkins, and as you can see also, I don't throw things away. I was honoured by being asked to give one of the name lectures at the ICE, the James Forrest lecture, and but the same, so you couldn't phone them up or work with them. And so we have this system. I'll favour this side, part over there, where we had on-screen clickable views, architectural facilities, management, structural. This is a new school, hypothetical new school, and we could turn on and off different functions of facilities. We were playing with visualization, virtual reality. In those days, it was all done in VRML, and the little toggle switch there, you could drive the joystick by a mouse and free fly through. Most of the visualization techniques that were available at that time, I can't remember the names of the software, but hours of painstaking work putting a single path, which was then repeated and repeated. You could actually fly it through. So playing with, let's just go back to this again. We could turn night into day, which not many people have been able to do over the years, he says facetiously. And playing with different types of augmented or whatever reality. And the reason, this is the bridge over the River Mole in Leatherhead, happened to be about 100 yards from where we were working, the office we had, so why not? And then going through, this is 98, we got at the time the latest of many different reports inspired by government biffing the construction sector around the head. You're lazy, you're overpriced, you don't give good quality, you take too long. We think of construction, otherwise known as the Eager report. 40 pages of actually quite good text, but most people will remember the targets, annual targets. And basically what the report said, if you do certain things, if you view things from the client side, if you think of value, if you think of flow of information, and drive that through supply chains, by the way, it would be good to have supply chains, then you should get a 10% improvement in capital cost, 10% improvement or compression of time, etc., etc. And if you do all those, then hey, at the bottom, Mr. Industry, you might actually make 10% more profits. The wastage in, and so that drove a whole sort of cottage industry of KPIs, which probably is still with us to an extent. And we'll go back there just a minute, because it took the good civil servants, and there were quite a few of them then, looking at construction, not very many now, about a week after the report was published, to realise that it's all very well having targets, 10% cheaper than, but no one knew cheaper than what. There were no benchmarks, right? And I was one of about a dozen people who were put into what was then a smoke-filled room, and not allowed out until we had some rudimentary key performance indicators. The problem with that is, once you start with a set of KPIs, you almost have to follow them through, because if you stop using those particular KPIs, then you don't have your record again. So however bad they were, and I apologise to the industry for perhaps not appreciating that fully at the time, you're then stuck with them. We were getting wake-up from other parts of the world about things that could be done better. Here's a report from this National Institute for Standards and Technology in the USA, Federal Research Agency. This came out of their economic office, commissioned by a friend of mine, Bob Chapman, which came up with a figure of $16 billion a year wasted on capital procurement per year through insufficient interoperability of information. You speak to Bob, he'll still say, actually, we thought it would be more like 30 billion, but we didn't think anyone would believe us. So they halved it. We had this sort of thing coming up from the what was then the International Alliance for Interoperability, which is still an awful name to try and bring out, which is doubtless why it was changed to Building Smart just a couple of years after this, which everyone can take a view, probably the different view, but you know, easier to understand. That if you can move if you do things digitally, shorthand that you can move the traditional effort in design effort to an earlier part of the process. And there were people who believed it, there were quite a lot of people who didn't, and you know, there was quite a lot of stiction in getting things done. And about the same time, it's now Building Smart. You know, that's pretty much identical to what I showed inefficiently on 2 slides just a few minutes ago. We called it then a BIM model, and we're now into the turn of the century, 2000, and maybe the first few years of this century. Then we got up to 2010. Labour government turned into a coalition government, and the apocryphal, actually it's a real letter, brief letter that was left by the outgoing Chief Secretary to the Treasury for his incoming successor. Dear Chief Secretary, I'm sorry to tell you there's no money left. And most of you will remember that if your politics are of one persuasion, you will say that the Labour administration had over the previous 3 or 4 years invested heavily and to the benefit of society in social infrastructure of new houses, new schools, etc., etc. If your politics are of another persuasion, you might think that actually they were wasting an awful lot of money trying to buy votes. Whatever happened, like that, just a year after that, 31st of May 2011, the government came up with its then new construction strategy, which really set out the mandate for BIM. Right? And it's just in those three lines. Government will require fully collaborative 3D BIM with all project and asset information, documentation and data being electronic at a minimum by 2016 equals early April 2016 government year. A stage plan will be published with mandated milestones showing measurable progress at the end of each year. Right? So by those 3 lines, that sort of opened the door, if you like, to all the good stuff, some of the bad stuff that we've seen over the last few years. On the very same day, Francis Maud, who was at the time Cabinet Secretary, some people call that would refer to that as the 10-down ministry of the Prime Minister. Other people were referring to Francis Maud as the government's Rottweiler, because I think in early days of the government, he was signing off government contracts down to £40,000, I think, something very silly like that. But here we are, same day, so 31st of May 2011, and he is saying blah blah blah, and in doing so will reduce costs by up to 20% by the end of this Parliament. Now, I don't know where that 20% figure came from. I haven't yet found anyone who can tell me. There were some signs, from different parts of the world. There were very, very few case studies. And of course, no one really builds things twice, and all projects are a bit different. My own thinking is that if he said 10%, no one would have bothered. Because, 2% better a year, don't have to get out of bed much to do that. You just need to work a little bit more efficiently. If he said 30%, no one would have bothered. Because they probably have thought, we can't do that, so we're not going to try. But setting it at 20%, was probably about the level that would tickle people to make that effort. Right? So that was then. Well, why did government make that statement? Well, they were informed by a report that it says here, government construction client group. It came pretty much out of Building Smart. That was a report that was chaired by Mark Bew, and pretty much by Paul Morell, who was then the newish still, because the chief construction officer in government. I mean, the post had been created in the Labour administration, so Paul was about 2 years in. One of the good things is that the coalition government left him in post. Would that we had one these days, I think a number of things would be much easier, in brackets, because the government tends to view that industries should be left to themselves. Actually, a lot of Paul's good work was spent in putting government departments together. It wasn't anything really to do with putting the industry in shape. It was really looking at the government side. No one left that out. But that was just published in March 2011, so it's only 2 months before the strategy was published. And let's visit you people over here. And there were, this came out of 6 recommendations. Right? Some people say that Paul actually supplied the recommendations before the work was done. I couldn't scarcely comment on that. But just running through them, which doesn't mean to say they're common. Common sense isn't really that common, some people say. Leave complexity and competition in the supply chain. Right? Don't micromanage. If you micromanage, you accept risk as a customer. You leave all sorts of wriggle room for suppliers to say, well, I'd have done it to time and budget, but you made me do things certain ways. And sorry, I wasn't going to do it those ways. Be very specific. I think this is laughable, frankly. Be very specific with supply chain providers. They'll only provide 2. Now, that's almost like saying people will sign a contract and then give you what the contract says. Yeah? I can't understand why anyone would think, you get much more. Really. Measure and make use of outputs. Actually, this is sort of a government initiative. It's going to cost them a bit of money. If you can't measure an outcome from that's looking better than it was, then Treasury will close you down. Provide appropriate support infrastructure. That's kind of code for train the procurers. Right? You get the procurers, the good bunnies in procuring government departments to understand what this means and to procure in a way that is tuned to BIM and appropriate to BIM, you might get what you want. Take progressive steps, don't run before you can walk, and the last one is sort of the government mantra: have a clear target for the trailing edge of the industry. You know, as we all know, there are about 100,000 or so construction companies in the UK, the way the government lists them. The vast majority have less than 10 people, and you know, it's not really on for a government at one point to set up systems which are much more efficient on procurement, but which chuck 500,000 people out of work. Doesn't quite balance. So that's always with us, and I'll get through those. And of course, is there anyone in the room who hasn't seen that? Right. Well, I'll give you a little take on it. And my little take really is that the level 2, which effectively is where the government mandate is running. And by the way, you know, government would say, I'm not a speaker on behalf of them, but whatever you do, keep to level 2, make that common through the industry. It certainly isn't at the moment. Don't start thinking about additional levels yet, because we're not ready for them. Set at level 2, and file-based collaboration, level 1, that plus library management in level 2, and now people would split up level 3 into ABC or whatever for different transformations. I mean, I think that line was set there for 2 good reasons. One is that it was, at the time, it was technologically feasible. You didn't have to develop stuff to do it. But I think the second one, which is far more important, was you could do level 2 without changing contracts. So you could do it without worrying finance directors, commercial directors, legal directors, etc. If you worried those sorts of people, then to do anything industry-wide within 5 years would have been, just forget it. Come back 20 years' time. So I think it was quite cute. I think it was quite cute to do it by purchasing power rather than through legal or standards. And I won't show much on this. You've all seen this sort of thing about you know, the first pilot being in the Ministry of Justice, being a 2-wing, 3-story, 128 repeated 2-room plus services unit. We're going to call them rooms rather than cells, because it's young offenders. They have secure rooms, but not prison cells, apparently. And how the first thing that was done was to reprocess procurement to make it possible and good for BIM. And this is where we got the initial data drops coming in through various levels. So that's just one of the data drops, data drop 2. And how we have a new way now of playing with different areas of work, but models and room data sheets. If RDSs are your thing, and they tend to be if you're dealing with buildings of this type. And of course then the idea here that from the same body of information you get enough detail to build, maintain what you're building at one level, but from exactly the same body of information you can just pull out plumbs like total cost. And if you're looking at a fleet of prisons or whatever, you can pull out the costs of each of them, compare, contrast, add them up. So the sorts of things that I'm told people in Treasury love to do. Value that we get. Moving on a bit to where we're going and what people tell us we're going, and of course management consultants always try to help, don't they? So this is a report from McKinsey last June, the construction productivity imperative. So, you know, if you're sitting here smugly thinking, yeah, we're doing BIM, that's better than it was, isn't it? Actual fact, that 20% the board came up with seems to have been met largely. You know, the figures for the last few years look in roughly sort of 18 to 23, 25%, like for like. But they've also, but BIM isn't the only thing that's changed. Like sort of, you know, when you're conducting any type of experiment, if you change 3 or 4 things at the same time, you can't possibly get an idea of what's really happening. So we've seen agile processes, lean processes, supply chain processes coming in as well over the last few years. And no one really seems to know what. We've also seen BIM has forced a greater collaboration, at least between the tier ones and the professionals. If you ask Rudy Klein, as I did recently, who has headed up the SEC group, Specialist Engineering Contractors group, for many years. If you ask him, what do you think of BIM, Rudy, he'll say, Tim, I think it would be a very good idea. Because it's just not reaching the tier 2s, 3s, whatever, still, in other than a very, very small number of cases. So, anyway, that aside, so the McKinsey report says that if there were 3 units of procurement around the world in 1990, and that covers both buildings and infrastructure, I tend to use the term real estate, which tends to confuse us or not, then 6 by 2012 and 13 by 2030, so an over doubling in that 18-year period. But they then go on to say, actually, you're not very good at it, Mr. Industry. Right. This is a figure of, and it says at the top, 98% of mega projects face cost overruns and delays. Okay? 98% of projects incur cost overruns of it. The average cost increase is 80% of original value. Interesting term, the word value, because I would tend to use cost. Average, don't worry. It's not Crossrail. The average slippage is 20 months behind the original schedule. Now, I think there's a lot in that. I mean, the Olympics were sort of way over original budget, but if you don't remember to include VAT, if you don't remember that the Olympics has a sort of a bit of a need for security and other types of services, then you're not, So I don't know the background to that. But so obviously top right corner, you've got some right Lulus jobs. I mean, these are variously badged mining, oil and gas infrastructure. Yeah, and where they're turning is. Number 57 at the top looks a bit like 300% capital overrun and 9 years late. Well, yeah, that could be an oil and gas offshore field where it's been put on ice because of commercial reasons, and when they blew the dust off it had to be done in a different way, blah, 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 and it's actually a very different project. But certainly, it actually doesn't matter what the reasons are in industry, because it's what politicians think, it's what the senior civil servants think, right, who are guiding politicians. You also get this figure in that report. Productivity in manufacturing has nearly doubled, whereas in construction it's remained flat. And maybe a lot of you, maybe all of you have seen these sorts of things before. The US has been turning out these sorts of figures for years, and they term it construction versus non-farm industries, non-farming. Agriculture must be in a class of its own, I guess. But here we have the Odinian yellowish colour for general manufacturer, and the red is for construction. Unless you think, oh, that's not us, that's everyone else, well, the figures come from Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, UK, USA. Right, quite a powerful set of figures. Lest you think that actually the UK is doing quite well, and it's the USA, big sector, 10 times the size of UK construction. They're dragging everyone down. That's the UK figures from the Office for National Statistics. Again, they don't have to be right. This is what the those in power will believe. Okay. Here we have general economy versus construction. Same time scale, mid to late 90s to just a couple of years ago. Same sort of picture. And all of that is productivity that really led to a report that was published in the summer, July of 2013, looking forward to 2025. Not another government report bashing the industry round the head, but this time much more of a partnership report. It was led by Peter Hansford, who was the second and last, because there is no more post, government chief construction advisor, officer rather, and I put in parentheses, and of course the past president of the ICE, so a thoroughly excellent chap, co-signed and co-produced with a panel of, or a team of, no, not really a team, panel, committee of 36 or so industry leaders. Okay, I did a bit of foresighting work connected with this, for which I got, as you might expect, precisely nothing, apart from a little attribution right at the end. But has everyone seen this report? Right? Has anyone not seen it? Gosh, what an up-to-date set of people. We all know then, it's a clear vision of, here's the vision of people. I'll leave you to work out whether you think it's realistic. Yeah. Known for its talented and diverse workforce. Smart and industry sufficient and technologically advanced. No tittering, please. Sustainable. Growing that leads, that drives growth across the entire economy. Yes, we all know that good infrastructure goes to a healthy or a healthier economy now. Leadership, an industry with clear leadership from a construction leadership council, etc. But just like the Egan report, most people will know and be terrified by those. You know, 30 within, well, actually 12 years. It's now 9 years. 9-year target. 33% lower cost. That's both procurement and lifetime. 50% time compression on projects. 50% lower greenhouse gas emissions over the lifetime. Actually, that's the only one that can be pinned back. That's the waypoint, 2025, of the legislated 80% reduction by 2050 from a 1990 benchmark. And the last one says improvement in exports. I think the small print, actually the small print here doesn't really go with the headline. The small print said basically it's a reduction in the gap, the trade gap on construction products. As if we can do much about the market forces, that means that at the moment most bathroom and kitchen tiling comes from Italy. Nearly all stone, particularly facade stone for buildings, comes from China. But it's in the report there. We also get put in our place, and I think I always think that benchmarking is fine. I've indulged in a bit of benchmarking over the years, now and again. And you get everyone together, you line them up, you can tell who the tallest is, or whatever you're trying to look for. But if you don't look at outside sector, you might find that actually you're a tribe of pygmies in the Congo, and you find the tallest guy, but he's 4 foot 1 inch, right? Just over the hill, there are relative giants. Well, this report from.
Size pygmies.
What are you doing, Pat?
It's the pet dinosaur.
Okay. I thought CH2 got rid of the dinosaurs. Sorry. Moving swiftly.
Was that why you left?
Got your name and number. June 2014, a couple of years ago. Information flow in different sectors. Right? Software, media, construction, manufacturing, finance. Believe me, it is good to have a lot of red. A lot of dense redness equals good information flow. And construction seems to end up as a little, sort of poor little thing that's been left out in the rain. Been trodden underfoot a few times. Where are we going? I don't know, but this is a report that I produced with Mark View last year. I think it was published last February. It was delivered to Biz the previous August. It's not my stomach, by the way. Who sat on it for 6 months and then published it without any change, in quite a low-key way. And we looked in there at a number of things, but potentially introducing the whole performance area into, in addition to the procurement and operations. And this is the area of embedded sensors, of real-time information, of whatever, being used to, a bit like the computer in your car, which looks at the car's engine however many times a second and optimizes on a bundle of things. This will be the way forward for that. Unfortunately, we're just where we were with the Egan targets, that we can't even, at the moment, we don't define performance. So we need a different approach for different sectors. But that's where it was. And just a note, I'm not going to show more than this, you'll be pleased to hear. But in the areas we looked at in those report, if you haven't seen it and really want to, it hangs off the Digital Build Britain government website. It's the only report, I think it was last week, the only report hanging up there. But with a big bold banner in white with a blue background, or the other way around, saying, this is called coalition government. One of the problems with this was it came when it was launched or published February of last year. That was 3 months before the general election. If you turn to page 2 or whatever, you get the big, happy, smiling face of this cable. And it's, new governments do what new governments do, etc. But delivery mechanisms, commercial, technical, cultural, research, domestic, international growth, and sustaining UK leadership position. So we looked at all of those in some way or another. What we've had since from government in their latest budget 2016 in March, some really very un-Treasury-like language, right? The government will develop the next digital standard for the construction sector. Is there a standard for level 2? It's about sort of 9 documents which basically between them show you how to do it, but there's not a particular standard. Building Information Modelling 3, we've got the level now, you see, because that confuses people. People get confused between levels and dimensions. Some people tell me they're working on level 6, and you say, what's level 6? And they say X, Y, Z, time, cost, sustainability, or whatever. No, that's dimensions, it's not levels. But anyway, to save that, and here's the really non-Treasury stuff, to save owners of built assets billions of pounds a year, right? Now, normal Treasury speak will be to save blah blah 3.72 billion. And this is one of the challenges we've got, is we're into new stuff, we're into new territory. It's almost impossible to write a cogent business case. Impossible to do things that the Treasury guys and girls will understand and accept. But at least they've done it. It's in paragraph 2.322. Yes, there really are 321 paragraphs before it, and there are about 50 after it, so you can see where it comes in the pegging order, but potentially at least it's there. And of course, what we've had coming in over the last few years is my old green theodolite is tucked away in a box somewhere, perhaps buried, perhaps in a museum. Laser scanning, either land-based or aerially based now. New types of 3D printing. This is the Lufratine, Simon Austin, the right Talistair Gibb next to left. And really Simon's gone from a considerable amount of expertise in spray concrete into spraying it in a slightly different way, but it's putting technologies together. What we do well in construction, we can put things together. We hardly ever invent things, but we're good at adopting from elsewhere and undoing magic. That's what the Chinese have come up with. I'm going to be a bit unfair. They say that's a house. I say it looks more like a shed. Printing technology, which sounds really scary. I immediately think of turbine blades. How do you get turbine blades? The last I heard from Rolls-Royce, each turbine blade of whatever had something like 23 alloys, and they knew why 16 were required. They didn't know at all why the other 7 were there, but they just made it better. Right? So if the article further down, it actually says that they're printing sort of engine covers, right? So the inspection hatches. McDonnell Douglas are charging $17,000 a pop, and they're doing it for about 6 or 7. They don't rely on bits of stuff stuck to rails or whatever, targets, which then get dirty or get knocked off, and you have to get generally a month to get a possession to put them back on the live railway. The downside at the moment is that they're not proven to be able to run 24/7. But you know, we're on the way, we're on the march on these sorts of things. Crossrail, I won't say much about. Lots of stuff. But again, right? I pitched these. No, I was given these slides by Malcolm Taylor, information guru, director, whatever. Crossrail. Again, we see the very same. You know, that's what was called a common data environment. But we've had that model with us now for 20 years or so. And I really think that the way that data are being structured, handover to proximate asset owners, is really quite cute, and it's using the a similar analogy, if you like, of an iTunes playlist, where if you can get the data sorted the right way from the same set of data, you can satisfy this Greater London Underground for their station assets. You can satisfy Rail for London. They don't have the same needs. They have overlapping needs, and if you understand that from quite a way out, you can deliver against it. What else have we got? Just a couple of notes of about 3 more minutes, if that's all right. Cheers. Yeah. You know, one of the things this new way of working and thinking is developing is a whole load of startups. What has been traditionally quite a hard area to break into. So I'm just going to show a couple from UCL. Totally objectively, no bias. 3D Repo. Agile 3D repository. This has emerged or come out of an EngDoc sponsored by Arab. And is doing what startups in this area need to do, which is to win competitions, earn their spurs, if possible, get trial uses, and go further. And the other one I mentioned is Baystone, which has now been used quite significantly, substantially on Crossrail, and indeed an increasing number of projects. So Skanska, Costain, etc., particularly have adopted this. Tablet and web-based, soon to be smartphone-based collaboration tool for construction professionals. This has also gone through the process of winning awards. It's been being supported. Techstars, which is the largest startup supporter, in inverted commas, outside Silicon Valley, and is starting to do good stuff. I won't go through the ICE because there's not time. I can knock all of those out, other than saying that we've got the latest of ICE one-day BIM conferences in 3 weeks' time, each, just over. Or maybe it is 3 weeks today. But it's the 19th. Sorry, well, it is 3 weeks today, but on the 19th. So, you know, it's wrong. It's not the only thing I've shown that's wrong, but there you go. Park Plaza Hotel, just south of Westminster Bridge. You look at the IC website if you're not going and want to. And the how, a series of things. I mean, the first up should be a master's. We need formal acceptance by the quality police in UCL, which hopefully we get before Christmas. But effectively what we've done is go out to pull together about 15, 16, 17 people from different stakeholder areas of the industry and say basically what types of skills, why things are being done, trampled in the dust against the needs for time and budget, losing the ability to brief, some clients engineering principles. Right? Digital stuff is an enabler, it doesn't do it for you, it really doesn't. Don't forget that sensors, etc., need, anyone seen this? No? Right. The caption here, and there's no story attached, which I find deeply frustrating. It says here, right.